I'm Sarah Crowder. I've been president of the Elizabeth Community Association since last October, and I want to welcome you all to the first virtual ECA annual meeting. We confess that much of this year, since March, has been an experiment for us, as is this meeting. And we know it's not the same as our usual annual meeting, but thanks for tuning in anyway and supporting the board. I'd like to introduce the board now. I joined the board last October. I was the newest member, and I've been supported by this amazing and talented group of people every step of this most unexpected journey. So first, I'd like to introduce Evan Kettler. He's been an incredible vice president, and I must say, an all-round wise person. He's had a hand in almost every initiative we've done this year, and he is an incredible leader. Next is Kelly Yavorski, who's been the treasurer for the last 3 years. She's stepping down from the board this year, and we will really miss her. She's brought order and discipline to our books, and she's been an important voice on the board. Next is Lisa Yagla, who's been our social chair through what we know is a difficult year. She is so creative and talented, and she's agreed to help with social events again next year, assuming we can have social events. Lisa's an architect, and she's also going to serve on the real estate committee this coming year. And then we have Wes Bryant, who's our communications guru. His expertise and good humor have really saved us this year. And he and Lisa are also responsible for planning and executing this virtual meeting. I can't thank them enough, and we are so fortunate to have such talented people on the board. Paul Freeman is in charge of trees and beautification for the ECA. Paul's a landscape architect, and his expertise is a huge plus for all of us, and he is dedicated to preserving our tree canopy. And then we come to John McBride, who's our newsletter editor. John is creative, patient, and a wonderful writer and editor. Putting out the newsletter 4 times a year is a huge undertaking, and John is a master. I think he would also tell you that he's got a great committee. Jessica Meyer is in charge of traffic. Jessica has established great relationships with our city staff, and she's been the catalyst for lots of improvements and more to come. Rob Zabel is chair of the Elizabeth 8K. This is an enormous undertaking every year, and Rob does an amazing job. We know this year was disappointing, but he was able to salvage a lot of good things from the race, even though it was canceled. We'll tell you a bit more about that later. And then we come to Paul Shipley. Paul has served as an at-large member this year after being president for the previous 4 years, and he's also stepping down from the board after this term. Paul has a rich history in the Elizabeth neighborhood, and he co-chaired the real estate committee with Melanie Sizemore since January. He has been a great friend and resource for me as I found my way through this year, and I cannot imagine a better mentor. Then there's Melanie Sizemore. What can I say about Mel? I can tell you if we were in person, she'd probably walk out right now to avoid having to hear this. Mel has done almost every job there is on the board, and her knowledge and passion about real estate and development in the neighborhood is absolutely unparalleled. She co-chaired the real estate committee with Paul this year, and together, I will tell you, they have been a force for good in our neighborhood. Mel's also stepping down this year, but knows that we will all call on her regularly. During the year, Sal Cafidi, Cassandra Delicio, and Max Gillen left the board for personal and professional reasons. So in March, Phil Grennan and Ann Lambert were elected to fill 2 of these terms, and they have hit the ground running. Phil has served on the real estate committee and the Elizabeth Cares committee, and he's moving on to be secretary next year. He's great. Anne, who I've known for many years, has been an integral part of our committee that's worked on the Hawthorne Bridge. Excuse me. She has strong ties to the nonprofit community in Charlotte, and she brings so much to the board. Thank you, Anne. Last but not least is Beth Haney. Beth was not able to be with us tonight. She served as secretary this year, and she's also stepping down from the board after 15 amazing years. I can't say enough about Beth's dedication to our neighborhood, and she is also the best connector of people. Many of us, including me, are on the board because Beth asked us to serve. We will all miss her, but we are so happy that she's staying on the real estate committee. So thank you, every one of you amazing board members. These folks have spent untold hours working for the benefit of our neighborhood because they care deeply. Local activism is essential. They are marvelous representatives of what is good and special about this place we call home. So we may remember this year for all the things we have not done since mid-March, but I am heartened by the work and energy that has gone into neighborhood activities before March. You'll hear about these and more in the reports that are a little bit later. And even though we were forced to cancel some of our planned events, your board has continued to work hard. We switched to virtual meetings without a hitch. Well, almost without a hitch. Am I muted now? Thanks to the expertise of Wes Bryant. The newsletter kept right on going out on schedule thanks to the work of John McBride and his committee, and we donated an issue to our advertisers. The real estate has had too many meetings to count, and we've got more coming up. And as for the gold line, we challenged the city to do better at a city council meeting in February, and then we worked with the city to host a Zoom meeting about the Hawthorne Bridge and the gold line that was attended by over 100 people. We humbly take credit for suggesting that the bridge be open for pedestrians even before it was finished for vehicles, and that happened in August. The city has assured us that the bridge will be open for vehicles by the end of 2021. We plan to hold them to it. I want to thank Morgan Williams and Evan Kettler and Ann Lambert for their tireless work on this issue. We've also worked to establish communications with Mercy Hospital to minimize the noise on Fifth Street with their construction, and things have improved. And maybe best of all, the board funded Elizabeth Cares to help those in our city who are less well off than we are. And Evan will tell you more about that in a few minutes. You may also remember that there's a group of neighbors who are exploring historic designation for our neighborhood. We as a board have not yet taken a position on this, but we wanted to let you know that Block Captains will be surveying door to door in the next few weeks to gauge the support of neighbors, so please welcome them. Now, during the rest of the meeting, you're going to hear from our committee chairs. Then I'll present the slate of officers for next year and explain sort of an unusual voting procedure. So look for emails from Wes for reminders about the voting procedures and the results of a virtual drawing for prizes. With that, let's move on to the reports. First up is Kelly, our wonderful treasurer, with her very last report. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. It's been another great year for the ECA. So our fiscal year technically ends at the end of this month, but here is how we are shaken out so far. Our recurring revenues and expenses are our standard operational activities, whereas the one-time items you see here are unique to this fiscal year. So our net income so far is $29.7K. What makes up this figure is our revenues of the Elizabeth 8K at $41K, newsletter advertising at $5.3K, and membership at $1K. There's also a contribution of $35K made to the neighborhood. As you'll see here, our greatest expenses for the year have been the race at $13.7K, newsletter at $7.9K, legal fees at $3K, and the few neighborhood socials we got to squeeze in at $2.3K. Evan Kettler will go into greater detail about the Elizabeth Cares program, but you can see here that we've donated $20K of the $26.5K earmarked for the program so far. Next slide, please. So as of August 31st, we have about $10K in our operating account, and a healthy 185K in our money market account. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for their support, and I'm turning it over to Rob Zabel, the race director for Elizabeth AK.
Thanks, Kelly. And good evening, and thank you all for logging in tonight. I hope you and your families are all safe and healthy. My name is Rob Zabel. I've been an Elizabeth resident since 2006 and have had the pleasure of serving as the race director for the Elizabeth 8K road race since 2013. Our 34th annual race was scheduled for March 21st of this year, but unfortunately due to the COVID-19 pandemic and based on guidance and recommendations from government, health, and safety professionals that we were working with for several weeks leading up to the race, we decided on March 13th that the Elizabeth 8K should not and would not take place the following Saturday. That decision seems obvious now in retrospect, but at the time we were one of the first races that were forced to make that decision. I assure you the health and safety of our participants, volunteers, sponsors, partners, and our community is always our top priority, and it was no different for this situation this year. As disappointed as we were in having to make that decision, I had no doubt that it was the right decision at that time due to the severity and uncertainty of the situation. As you might expect, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into the planning of the race. In fact, the majority of work and heavy lifting was done by March 13th. And we were looking forward to hosting what was likely to be one of our most successful races to date in terms of the number of participants and the number of sponsors we had for the race. As you can see, 750 people had already pre-registered, and we had 25 sponsors signed up to support it. Every year, I am extremely grateful to the participants and sponsors who support the race and our community. But this year, especially, I would personally like to extend my appreciation and gratitude to each of the participants and race sponsors for their understanding and patience and support that they showed this year in light of the unfortunate circumstances. I'm especially amazed and grateful for those sponsors who chose to redirect their funds for the Elizabeth Cares initiative that the ECA set up to support our community and first responders, which Evan will discuss next. We're still uncertain as to what next year will look like, but I assure you our team will work with local officials and the running community to evaluate all our options and hopefully to be able to host a race in some capacity at some time, so stay tuned. And it would be remiss for me to not also give a special thanks out and shout out to my phenomenal race committee for their tremendous dedication and support. Thank you, Tommy, Lisa, Marshall, Brian, and Rick. That's it. Evan, you're up.
Great, thanks, Rob. Let's start with people, because none of this happens without the volunteers, both within the community and on this board. The Elizabeth Cares initiative was set up in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't really have to explain much beyond that, but we recognized that there were significant needs in the community that were greater than we had actually ever experienced before. This board decided, given our ability to do so, and given the support of the participants and sponsors of the Elizabeth 8K, who are unfortunately not able to run, that we would make contributions to local nonprofits with an eye towards serving the community, we'll call it. Our committee members were Sarah Crowder, Paul Freeman, Phil Grennan, myself, and Rob Zabel. The mission that we chose to pursue was to support the community businesses, individuals, and first responders in the face of the pandemic. And the origin really was the funds generously donated by the 8K sponsors. At the same time, the ECA decided that we would match the first $10,000 of those funds in order to share in the desire to give generously. Next slide, please. So the guidelines we embraced were to use existing nonprofits. We're not experts at how to help people as individuals other than our neighbors. We leverage the services of existing nonprofits to try and get the most bang for our buck. We targeted area residents, area businesses, and area first responders. Whenever possible, we chose to give to nonprofits that would both give to the beneficiaries we had targeted and at the same time use some of our local businesses. The race sponsors were given the opportunity to participate, and in most cases, they generously and quickly agreed. And again, the first $10,000 we matched with our own funds for a total of $26,590 in donations that we decided to distribute. The $90, by the way, is from one resident who just reached into their own pocket and said, I want to help too. I'm not going to name the individual, but you'll forever be credited for that. Next slide, please. Thus far, in our first round of giving, we really targeted first responders and community businesses providing meals, using local restaurants whenever possible to again, leverage those donations. We were able to reach Feed the Frontline Charlotte and Frontline Foods, both of whom chose from, we basically identified the full spectrum of all of the restaurants in the area and let them work with them. Our goal was not to pick winners and losers, but rather to try to benefit as many as we could. Our second round of donations was targeted at individuals in need, providing food and social services to both children and adults, especially in response to the pandemic. And those donations went through Loaves and Fishes, the Urban Ministry Center, the Learning Collaborative and the Pantry, St. John's Baptist Church and their COVID-19 fund, and Friendship Trays. Next slide, please. So we still have $6,590 that we are planning to donate in the next 60 days. We'll use the same exact approach. Our committee will meet. We will vet the nonprofits. We will try to target whatever the greatest need is at this time. And unfortunately, we've all seen that this has been a relatively long-lived challenge. And we'll report out to you when we make those decisions. That's all I have to say. Thank you all for your generosity and thank you for being part of our community. I'm going to hand off now to the multi-talented Lisa Yagla.
Thanks, Evan. My name is Lisa Yagla, and I am your ECA Social Chair. Last fall and winter, we had several fun events. The Pumpkin Wall was a great success, thanks to the committee led by John Short and to Hardin and Linda Miner, who have graciously hosted the event and the carving party for many years. We also had the holiday party, which was a wonderful time, thanks to Elaine Scott and Jerry Tillman. Unfortunately, we couldn't host the Easter egg hunt or the progressive dinner due to COVID. But out of COVID, a new tradition has been born, the graduate car parade. Thanks to all the moms who got together and organized the event to celebrate their graduates. Thanks also to everyone in the neighborhood for coming out to cheer, sing, and make noise to support the graduates. It was a great success, and we look forward to hosting the event again next year, regardless of the status of COVID. As for this year, we are still making plans, but we are planning to hold or host only outdoor events that are flexible in order to comply with the new current guidelines and recommendations. So please stay tuned for the details of a safe pumpkin wall and a holiday festival. Unfortunately, the holiday party will be canceled. All events for 2021 are currently on hold pending the future of COVID. As always, we are still looking for volunteers, especially for the holiday festival. Please email me if you can help or if you have any creative ideas. It's a tough time for many, and we encourage everyone to contribute to charities, help your neighbors, and be extra festive this coming holiday season. Next, we have Jessica with the traffic report.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, Elizabeth, and thank you for the opportunity to serve as your traffic committee chair. Hopefully, you've noticed some incremental traffic improvements in the neighborhood over the course of the past year. In order to serve you, the traffic committee maintains regularly scheduled quarterly meetings with CDOT officials to discuss the most pressing traffic-related matters in our neighborhood. I maintain a spreadsheet of open items that have either been raised by you or identified by me during rides and walks around the neighborhood. And I present those items to CDOT and track them until CDOT provides sufficient comments or closes the open item. Focus areas over the last year have really been dominated by one, support of the ECA board efforts to address the Hawthorne Bridge reopening and associated streetcar challenges, and then two, incremental improvements to our arterial and auxiliary roads throughout the neighborhood. Hopefully you've noticed a pedestrian crossing sign here or a street resurfacing there. On the slides that are presented on your screen, you'll see many of the ongoing concerns that are raised by many of you. I've bucketed them into concerns with our arterial road system as well as our primary road system. As I think about these concerns, many can be addressed with one-off conversations with CDOT or requests from CDOT. But more meaningful change will require the community to get organized. To that end, my goal for the neighborhood is to get serious and to get organized around a comprehensive traffic plan for our neighborhood. Our neighborhood remains an attractive neighborhood for redevelopment with a lot of ongoing projects, and we should demand that traffic improvements are made in addition to those redevelopments. As a reminder, please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you see any safety or maintenance issues, things like road conditions, encroaching landscape, sidewalk conditions, crosswalk visibility, and safety matters can all be escalated. With that, I'll turn it over to John McBride, who can speak about our wonderful newsletter.
Thanks, Jessica. Hopefully, most or all Elizabethans are familiar with the quarterly newsletter. Look for the next issue coming up the first week of December, the winter issue. If you don't get it, please email me at newsletter@elizabethcommunity.com. Story and photo ideas are always welcome, of course. And don't forget to take out an ad. Next. A couple of previous years' highlights. With the Elizabeth Cares initiative, we gave free ads to all of our existing advertisers and invited new Elizabeth-based businesses to advertise for free. That helps to explain some of the discrepancy that the treasurer pointed out earlier on. If you noticed that we were kind of operating a deficit, we try not to do that, of course. I'd like to make a special shout out to the 33 contributors that we've had in the last 4 issues. These people are your neighbors, writing and documenting about things going on in your neighborhood. And that does not include the many folks the extensive network of folks who deliver the newsletter to us by hand every quarter. And also a special shout out to Susan Green, our editorial assistant. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Freeman and beautification.
Thanks, John. Hello, Elizabeth. We are going into our second season of street tree planting with the City of Charlotte. They select the locations, the species, and the size, and we provide the funding and the labor. All of the trees are planted in the right-of-way along the roads. In our previous arrangement, the city matched our number of trees with theirs, doubling the effect. This year, the ECA is matching your donations dollar for dollar for an even larger effort. I'm thrilled to report right now you have donated $450. Local landscape contractor and Elizabeth resident Nate Negrin. Sorry, Siri. Local landscape contractor and Elizabeth resident Nate Negrin with Southern East has offered assistance in planting to make our money go even further. Please consider a donation. We have a constant need for new trees as our canopy ages out. Aside from the trees, the ECA has increased our maintenance efforts and included the traffic circle at 8th and Lamar. And now I'd like to turn it over to the Real Estate and Zoning Committee report with Paul Shipley. Next.
Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Just wanted to take a quick second. Here's your, on this slide, I wanted to show your real estate committee. This group does tireless work, has been meeting literally weekly for most of the summer. The large number of projects that have been brought forth over this period. So I wanted to really just take a moment and thank every one of them for the incredible amount of time and commitment they put in, and just mental energy that's had to go into these discussions and meetings for the last many months. So thank you. But next, if you could move on, we'll go through what's going on in the neighborhood. So we broke these out into a list of properties that are already rezoned and already in process. As you know from last year, Elizabeth, the ECA and the Real Estate Committee spent many months with Crescent Communities working through a plan for the redevelopment of the Philosopher's Stone, Jackalope Jack site at 7th and Caswell. This project has broken ground, as you I'm sure have seen. We're very excited about this project. You can follow it as it moves along by either reaching out to the Crescent Communities website. They have updates on there regularly with high def, really nice pictures as well of other renderings and perspectives of this building. And they will also continue to be in touch with us as the project progresses, particularly as anything that happens with traffic or other issues that may come up. We will hear from them as it goes along. As you may recall, it's a retail and it's a mixed-use project with first floor retail, structured parking behind, and the top floors, 3 floors are office. It's an exciting landmark type of building, I think, in our neighborhood. Next. This is a rendering, and just fair warning. This is a preliminary sketch. The developer wanted me to just make sure you all knew that we've agreed to materials and all of this, the size and scope of this project. But he's working hard to do a high quality small townhome unit at the corner of Firefighter and 7th Street. It's currently an empty lot across from the Firefighter park and tower and buildings that are over there. 4 of the units will face 7th Street. This is right at the intersection at the 5th Street light. 4 of these units will face 7th Street with rear parking into their driveway or into their garages, and the other 6 units will face the Elizabeth Court townhomes in the back. So a nice project that is going to. It's been approved by the ECA's Real Estate Committee. He is getting this to the city for approval Monday, and I would imagine it'll be sometime next year when this project gets started. Next. A few others. This was 2150 Park Drive. This is at Clement and Park Drive, facing the park. There was a 2-story square block office building that has been rezoned into a 3-story office building. The first 2 floors will be office, and a residence will be on the upper floor. So you'll have a resident living on the park. These are next door to the tall townhomes overlooking the park. And then the 2500 block of Vale Avenue. This is down at the curve as it round to Crownsgate and out to Randolph Road. Drakeford and Company has rezoned 2 parcels. There are 2 duplexes that sit right in the elbow of that turn, and he will be tearing those down and putting 2 new buildings, which will each have 2 townhomes in there. So that has also, after working with the neighborhood on some changes to the footprint and how this worked laid out, there will be a small sidewalk along there which there is not one now. It's a nice new project also at that end of the neighborhood. Next slide. There are two large projects that are in the process of rezoning, and the committee has been very busy meeting with the developers to hear the plans. One is further along than the other. The first site is the King's College site. This would be kind of the property that's bounded between 5th Street and Park Drive and Lamar and Clement. There is some facing the park. There's some retail, some residential apartments there. And what has been proposed is to build a new medical office building, 4 to 6 story office building, approximately 74 feet, parking deck. All of that would be facing 5th Street. Concurrent with that rezoning, there's a portion of the property currently that's zoned residential, and the developer, the Keith Corp, would sell off a portion of this property to a residential builder who will develop townhomes along the half of Park Drive that faces the park. The other corner will be a green space, tree save area per the proposed plans so far. We are still in discussions with them on the plan. It's an exciting project. There will certainly be community meetings as that progresses, but that's where it is right now. So just a heads up, that's a big one coming. Along with that, the North Carolina Spine Center building on Randolph Road and Colonial is also has also been applied to be rezoned by Flagship Healthcare. They plan on building another, I think, single tenant medical office building, clinical type building on that site. It's a 7-story building. They've put in a plan not to exceed 120 feet. That's kind of a max that they could ask for, but I don't think that believe that 7 stories would particularly go that high, but they wanted to have that flexibility. They would also put a 6-story parking deck about 65 feet high behind the property, and that would be on the corner of Vale and Colonial, right across from the entrance to Mercy and the Mercy Medical building that is down there. So they're the two rezoning projects, that big ones that are in process as we speak. There are other things that go on. We do not, just as a matter of information, we do not get involved typically with a single home builder building a house unless there's a rezoning of some sort that would have to go on there. These are mainly the larger projects that are impactful to our neighborhood, strategically impactful to our neighborhood, that we want to focus a lot of our time. So Lisa, if you could go to the next slide. So with that, we continue to keep an eye on activity in the neighborhood, and so we are watching whatever the activity may or may not be. To be clear, at this point, there really hasn't been any, but we thought it would be appropriate to let you know what we know right now. 2014 Park Drive. This is also this is kind of between Clement heading up to Greenway in the curve on that side of it. I'm sure you have noticed that a building has been taken down. There's a gravel lot. That lot is actually zoned residential. The city has talked to the owner about that, as you can see, and that they cannot use it for parking. We're going to continue to monitor how they're using that lot for right now as they decide what they're going to do with it. We have no other information about that property. 7th and Street in Clarice, a real estate investor, Eastern Federal, the former owners of Martha Washington Apartments. They own the shopping center where the Manor Theater is over on Providence. They have purchased multiple lots in this area on 7th and Clarice. And while we have not been approached by the new owners about anything, and I don't think there's any other plans that we know of, we're going to continue to keep an eye and see if there is any other information that pops up. We will let you know. And then also further down 7th Street between Lamar and Clement, I'm sure many of you have noticed from the that whole side of the building, the buildings that are all completely empty right now, have been accumulated or assembled over the last few years, but there have been no rezoning plans that we have heard or been notified of, but we'll continue to keep an eye on that property too. Next. And just to kind of follow up, wanted to show that we thought this was such a great site plan for us. I'm sorry it's so small, of the redevelopment of the park. Things have been continuing going on. I'm sure as you've gone through the park, the baseball and soccer fields are generally completed at this point. They have started the bidding on the 17th, so next week, for the project overall. And there has been a lot of interest in the project at this point, which I would have no doubt. The construction's planned to start sometime in later November of 2020. But if they're getting these bids out now, I'm not quite sure that's a reasonable timeline, but maybe it is. But that's kind of where it is on Independence Park. And I think that's all we have. Oh, I had one other point on Independence Park. We got a question about the tennis courts. You can't really see it in this slide as well, but what the plan will be is that we're going to lose one of the tennis courts there as that land starts to be used for a new building with restrooms that will be closer to the front of the park down in that area. So just wanted to get back with you on that. We will get a picture of that at some point, a closer blow up, so you can get a better idea. And we will send that out in an ECA letter or email at a later time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to West and the communications update.
Thank you, Paul. So it was an exciting time for communications for the ECA. My name is West, if you don't know me already. I'm in charge of communications, membership, and also dabble in e-commerce. And this year I dabbled in video streaming. In 2020, in the September meeting from last year, I asked if someone would be willing to help with social media. And we were very lucky that Yen stood up and volunteered. So she handled social media for us this year and did a tremendous job. If you look at our Twitter or Instagram or Facebook feeds, they have actual content, which was better than I was doing on my own. So thank you, Yen, for that. It was awesome. And she has agreed to continue to do that. We were able to utilize some existing services, so we didn't have to go do anything too crazy for our board meetings and to hold those virtually, which was awesome. And we continue to use Shopify for newsletter ad transactions, membership transactions, and various other e-commerce. So once again, very secure method. I'm really happy that I don't have to manage anybody's credit card number. That is all taken care of in a very secure and compliant way. And the only thing that was really unusual for me was I did write a limited run column on Wednesdays, which was surprisingly popular. At least I was surprised, except to maybe one person. And if you read the emails, you would know what I'm talking about. Just so everybody knows, that individual that was joking around is a good friend of mine, so no worries there. And I really appreciate all the email support that I got with regard to that column. It was a lot of fun to write. So next slide, please. So in 2021, I'm going to kind of try to replay my success from last year. So I'm always looking for help to run communications activities, technology, all the things that kind of little bits and bobs, so to speak, of things that we have to do to run this kind of stuff for the board. If you're interested, I will definitely teach you if you don't know. If you already know, that's even better. But please email me at west.bryant@gmail.com. We will continue also to expand the ECA reach and representation to more Elizabeth residents. This is sort of a core guiding principle I've been trying to run by. On that note, please do tell your neighbors when you see a new person move in, or you talk to a neighbor and you talk about something you saw on the notification list or on the families list, and they don't know what you're talking about, make sure you let them know that there are two very cool ways to learn about what's going on in the Elizabeth neighborhood. And they can just go to the elizabethcommunity.com website to sign up for said lists. And of course, I will be continuing to collaborate with all my awesome peers on the board. It's a bummer that we're losing some really awesome and long-time serving members, but we have some really great ones coming in. And then I think, Sarah, you are up next to close us out.
Yes, thank you. I will unmute myself. Before we get to the presentation of our slate of officers for next year, I want to make a correction to something I said, and I hope I didn't give anyone heart failure. And I appreciate Evan for letting me know I misspoke. In my remarks about the Hawthorne Lane Bridge, I intended to say that the bridge is scheduled to open for traffic at the start of 2021, not the end. Big difference. So stop emailing right now. You don't need to email. The city staff has promised us the start of 2021, meaning in January, early January, and we are looking forward to driving over that bridge. So with that, I would like to present the slate of officers for 2020-21 that would take office on October 1. So Lisa, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. This is a really talented slate of people. And I just want to say that our neighborhood is incredibly fortunate to have people willing to give of themselves and of their time. And most of these folks on the board now and who will be coming onto the board have day jobs and families and children at home. So it is really sacrificial, and I thank them all so much. So as you see from this slate, we have a number of board members who are returning, and we have 4 of the 15 are new people. Eric Davis has been on the board in the past. He was president before Paul came in as president, and he would be returning to the board as past president. And then the other new members would be Taylor Robbins and Sherry Swarthout and Reagan Miller. And you will get an email later tonight that has little profiles of all these folks, so you know what to expect from them. Now, if this was a normal year, we would all be at St. John's Baptist Church and we would vote right now, but it's not a normal year. So the board has decided we are going to follow this voting procedure. And West has, I believe, already emailed this out. We're going to vote by email. And we ask for you to use the email account with which you registered your ECA membership. And we'll accept votes until 8 o'clock on Thursday night. So we've got about 48 hours to vote. You could also, if you're just not into emailing your vote, if you're worried about voter fraud, you can drop your vote off, print that email out that you'll get with the slate, and drop it off in an envelope at Beth Haney's house, corner of Greenway and Ridgeway, the big white house. She's at 2133 Greenway. And as it says on this slide, you need to have joined or renewed by Thursday night at 8 o'clock to be eligible to vote. And here is the email address where you would vote. So you'll get another email go out to entire membership later this evening with all of this information. Next slide. And we are going to do a raffle drawing because if we were at the church, we would be able to do some fun things and have dinner together and talk and socialize. So there will be an online raffle drawing for some fabulous gift cards to local establishments. But to do that, once again, you need to sign up or renew your membership by Thursday night, September 17th at 8 p.m. So lots of good stuff to do. And next slide. If you have questions that have come up from anything that was said in this meeting, with the exception of correcting me about the bridge, because I already fixed that, just send your questions to West at the communications@elizabethcommunity.com, and we will get back to you. So with that, unless anyone else on the board has anything for the good of the group, I will entertain a motion for this board and this annual meeting to stand in recess until 8:00 p.m. on September 17th, and we will adjourn the meeting at that time so that voting occurs during the meeting. So do I hear a motion to that effect?
This is Phil Grennan, so moved.
Second?
This is Evan Kettler. I second.
All in favor? You can indicate by waving your hand or on the chat, or
Aye.
we'll take thumbs up.
Aye.
All right. With that, I'm declaring this annual meeting of the ECA in recess until 8 p.m. Thursday night, September 17th. Thank you so much, everyone, and good night.
Good night. Thank you.